The massive council chamber buzzed with the voices of 1,000 different species. Kyung-min sat in the small human section, watching as the Vorten delegates argued with the celestial representatives about trade routes. Nobody looked at the human ambassador. Nobody ever did. "The motion to expand mining rights in Sector 7 passes," announced the speaker, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms. "All in favor of the Vorten proposal?" Hundreds of lights flickered green across the chamber. Kyung-min pressed his red button, voting against it. 3 other species joined him. The motion passed easily. "Any objections?" the speaker asked, not bothering to look toward the human section. Kyung-min stood up. His voice carried across the silent chamber. "I object. That sector borders human space. You didn't ask for our permission." Laughter rippled through the crowd. War Commander Theksulan, a massive Vorthon with scales instead of skin, turned in his seat. "Permission? From humans?" More laughter followed his words. "Your species controls 12 systems. 12, we control thousands. Why would we need permission from primates?" Heat rose in Kyung-min's face, but he kept his voice steady. "Because those are the rules. The Galactic Accords say." "The Accords were written by real civilizations," interrupted diplomat Velthara from the Celestial Dominion. Her silver form shimmered as she spoke. "Species that actually matter in galactic affairs. Not newcomers who barely discovered fire when we were building starships." More laughter. Kyung-min sat down, his hands shaking with anger. This happened every time. Every single meeting, they treated humans like children playing with adult toys. After the session ended, Kyung-min walked through the station's corridors. Other delegates passed him without acknowledgement. Some pointed and whispered. He heard the words they used: primitives, upstarts, barely evolved apes. His communication device buzzed. A message from Earth, from President Park. "How did the vote go?" Kyung-min typed back, "Same as always. They don't listen. They don't care. We're nothing to them." "Maybe it's time to change that," came the reply. 3 days later, something strange happened. Human ships began pulling back from the outer systems. Trade vessels that had been traveling regular routes suddenly changed course, heading home. The few human colonies on the edge of their space started evacuation procedures. Captain Ha-jun of the merchant ship Soul's Pride was one of the last to leave. His cargo hold was empty, unusual for a trade run. Instead of goods, he carried passengers, human civilians, scientists, military officers, all heading home. At the neutral trading post called Market Station, alien merchants noticed the change first. "Where are all the humans?" asked Trader Quacks, a squid-like being who bought human art. "They usually come here every week." Station Master Kor, a Vorthen officer, checked his logs. "Last human ship left 2 days ago. Soul's Pride registered to one Captain Ha-jun. Strange thing, though. He left a message for the station broadcast." "What kind of message?" Kor pulled up the recording. Ha-jun's face appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. "This is Captain Ha-jun of Soul's Pride, speaking for the human merchant fleet. We're going home now, all of us. We won't be coming back to your stations or your markets." The recording continued. "I have a message for the Galactic Council, for the Vorthens, for the Celestials, for everyone who thinks they know what humans are." Ha-jun paused, looking directly into the camera. "We're going home to prepare. Tell the galaxy to stay away from human space. For their own sake." The message ended there. Kor and Quex looked at each other in confusion. Back at the Galactic Council, the news spread quickly. Human space had gone completely dark. No ships coming out, no messages going in. The communication networks that connected human worlds to the galaxy had been shut down from the inside. War Commander Theksulan laughed when he heard. "Finally! The primates have admitted they don't belong here." Good riddance, but some council members felt uneasy. The ethereal collective, ancient beings of pure energy, sent a rare message. The human silence is not defeat. Something grows in the quiet. Most ignored the warning. Species across the galaxy celebrated. "No more human complaints about mining rights," said one delegate. "No more primitive questions about our decisions," said another. Ambassador Kyung-min was the last human to leave council space. Before boarding his ship, he sent one final transmission to the Galactic Assembly. The message was short but somehow felt heavy with meaning. "Fellow delegates," his voice echoed through the empty human section of the chamber, For 3 years we tried to be part of your galaxy. We followed your rules. We accepted your insults. We begged for scraps of respect. The chamber fell silent. Even the Vorthons stopped their usual chatter. We offered you partnership. You offered us servitude. We asked for equality. You gave us mockery. We tried to play by your rules. Kyungmin's voice grew stronger. Now we play by ours. The transmission cut off. Within hours, reports came in from across the galaxy. Every human everywhere was packing up and leaving. Scientists abandoned research stations. Diplomats closed their offices. Even human tourists canceled their trips and went home. What are they planning? Asked Diplomat Velthara, for the first time sounding worried instead of superior. Nothing, replied War Commander Thexulan. They're just running away like the cowards they are. Let them hide in their little corner of space. The galaxy is better off without them. But deep in space, on the edges of human territory, strange things began happening. Energy readings spiked in patterns no one recognized. Space itself seemed to shimmer around human worlds. Ships passing near the borders reported instrument malfunctions and disturbing dreams. The humans had indeed gone home. What they were preparing for, nobody knew. The galaxy assumed it was surrender. They were wrong. In the depths of human space, in laboratories and research stations hidden from alien eyes, work continued day and night. Dr. Sujin stood before a massive screen showing energy patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. The field generators are working perfectly, she reported to her team. The barrier is almost complete. And the other projects? Asked Director Jinwoo, ahead of schedule. The galaxy wanted to know what humans really are. Sujin smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. Soon they'll find out. Outside the research station, space itself was changing. Reality bent in ways that made no sense. Humanity was becoming something new, something the galaxy had never seen before, something it would learn to fear. The warning signs were clear, but nobody was listening. They never did. 3 years had passed since humans disappeared from galactic society. The galaxy had grown quiet without their constant complaints and requests. Trade flowed smoother. Council meetings finished faster. Most species agreed it was an improvement. Captain Velthar of the Zeltharian Trade Consortium wasn't so sure. He stood on the bridge of his ship, Prophet's Edge, studying the star charts. The human systems glowed red on his screen, marked as forbidden territory by galactic law. Captain, his navigator spoke up, the shipping routes through human space would cut our travel time by half. We could reach the outer colonies in days instead of weeks. Velthar nodded. The Zeltharians were always looking for profit, and faster routes meant more money. What's the legal status on human space now? Technically still theirs, replied his legal officer, but they haven't answered any communications in 3 years. No trade, no diplomacy, nothing. Some legal experts say we could claim abandoned territory rights. And what do the humans say about visitors? Nothing. They say nothing about anything. Velthar made his decision. His company was losing money on the long routes around human space. If the humans wanted to be left alone, they should have posted warning signs. Set course for the human border. We'll test their defenses. The Prophets. Edge was a typical Zeltharian vessel, fast, lightly armed, and built for making money rather than war. Its cargo holds were empty, ready to be filled with whatever valuable things they might find in abandoned human space. As they approached the border, something strange appeared on their sensors. Captain, the sensor officer called out. I'm reading. Some kind of barrier around the entire human territory. What kind of barrier? Unknown. It's not solid, but it's definitely there. Energy readings are. Weird. Velthar studied the readings. They made no sense. The energy signatures didn't match any known technology. Can we pass through it? Only one way to find out. The ship moved closer to the barrier. At first, nothing happened. Then their instruments started acting strangely. The navigation system showed them in 3 different places at once. The communication array began picking up signals from empty space. The lights flickered in patterns that hurt to look at. Captain, the engineer reported, his voice shaking. Our power systems are failing, not breaking down, changing. The energy is being converted into something else. What kind of something else? I don't know. something that shouldn't exist. Velthar felt fear creeping up his spine. The Zeltharians were known for being brave when it came to business risks. But this was different. This felt dangerous in ways he couldn't understand. "Pull back," he ordered. "Take us away from the barrier." As they retreated, their system slowly returned to normal. The strange readings faded. The light stopped flickering. But the crew remained shaken. They had seen something that defied everything they knew about how space and energy worked. "Captain," his communications officer suddenly spoke up, "I'm receiving a transmission." "From where?" "I'm not sure. It's coming from everywhere and nowhere." A voice filled the bridge. It was human, female, speaking in perfect Zeltharian. "This is Dr. Sujin of the Human Defense Force. You have approached our borders without permission." Velthar found his voice. "This is Captain Velthar of the Zeltharian Trade Consortium. We were just exploring trade routes. Your ship's systems have been analyzed. We know your intentions. You seek profit from what you believe to be abandoned territory." The voice was calm but carried an edge of warning. "You are mistaken on both counts." "Look," Velthar said, trying to sound reasonable. "We haven't heard from humans in 3 years. The galaxy assumed you had withdrawn from civilization." "Withdrawn?" There was something like amusement in the voice. "Captain, we haven't withdrawn. We've advanced. The question is whether the galaxy is ready to accept what we've become." "What have you become?" Silence filled the bridge for a long moment. Then Dr. Sujin spoke again. "Something your species couldn't comprehend with your current understanding of reality. Your ship encountered a simple border defense, a basic deterrent. What lies beyond would be far more challenging for visitors." Velthar's sensor officer suddenly cried out in alarm. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout human space. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Like nothing I've ever seen." The readings on their screens showed energy patterns that seemed to pulse with life. Structures that appeared and disappeared. Ships that moved through space in impossible ways. It was as if human space had become something else entirely. Not empty, but filled with things that existed beyond normal understanding. "Dr. Sujin," Velthar said carefully, "what exactly are those energy readings? Construction projects, research facilities, defense systems, the infrastructure of our new society." Her voice remained calm. "Captain, I'm going to give you some advice. Return to your people. Tell them what you've seen. Make it clear that human space is not abandoned, it's protected." "Protected by what?" "By humans. But not the humans you remember from 3 years ago." New alarms began sounding on the bridge. The barrier around human space was changing, becoming more solid, more real. Their instruments showed it extending outward, growing stronger. "This is your only warning," Dr. Sujin continued. "Leave now, while your ship still functions according to the laws of physics you understand. Stay longer, and we cannot guarantee your systems will remain compatible with your expectations of how reality works." Velthar didn't need to be told twice. "Helm, take us out of here, maximum speed." The Prophet's Edge fled from human space, its crew silent and shaken. Behind them, the barrier solidified into something that looked almost like a wall made of twisted space itself. Sensors showed it was impenetrable, not just to ships but to any form of investigation. As they reached safe distance, Velthar recorded his official report. "Human space is not abandoned," he dictated. "It's occupied by something that calls itself human, but has capabilities far beyond anything in galactic records. Recommend immediate investigation by military forces." But privately, as he watched the impossible barrier shrink into the distance, Velthar wondered if military forces would be enough. The humans had changed into something that seemed to exist partially outside normal reality. They had become something new. Back on the Zeltharian homeworld, Velthar's report caused panic in the Trade Consortium's boardroom. If humans had developed new technology, it could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. If they had become something more than human, It could change everything. Emergency messages went out to every major power in the galaxy. The Vorthan Empire, the Celestial Dominion, even the ancient Ethereal Collective received copies of the sensor readings from Prophet's Edge. For the first time in 3 years, the galaxy was talking about humans again. But now the conversation had changed from mockery to concern. The species that had once dismissed humanity as primitive primates were beginning to realize they might have made a serious mistake. In the depths of human space, Dr. Su-Jin watched the alien ship disappear from her screens. She turned to her colleagues in the hidden observation post. "They'll be back," she said quietly. "And they won't come alone next time." "Are we ready for that?" asked her assistant. Su-Jin smiled. It was not a human smile anymore. "We've been ready for 3 years. The question is whether they're ready for us." Admiral Kexran stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer's Edge, watching 50 Vorthan warships move into formation. This was the largest battle fleet assembled in decades, enough firepower to turn planets into dust. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "all ships are ready for the assault on human space." Kexran nodded with satisfaction. The Zeltharian trade ship's report had been concerning, but he wasn't worried. Humans had probably stolen some alien technology and were trying to bluff their way to importance. The Vorthan Empire would call that bluff. "The humans think they can hide behind energy barriers and mysterious warnings," he announced to his fleet commanders over the communication system. "Today we'll show the galaxy what happens when primitives try to threaten their betters." The fleet moved toward human space in perfect military formation. These weren't merchant vessels like the Zeltharian ship. These were warships built for destruction, crewed by professional soldiers who had conquered dozens of worlds. As they approached the barrier around human territory, Kexran studied the energy readings. They were strange, but nothing his ships couldn't handle. "All vessels prepare to breach the barrier. Maximum power to forward shields." The fleet punched through the energy wall like it wasn't there. Alarm sounded briefly, then stopped. They were inside human space. "Scan for targets," Kexran ordered. "Admiral," his sensor officer reported, confusion in his voice. "I'm not reading anything. No ships, no stations, no planets." "What do you mean, no planets?" "The star charts show 12 human worlds in this sector." "The stars are there, sir, but empty space where the planets should be." Kexran frowned. This wasn't what he'd expected. "Take us deeper." "They must be hiding somewhere." The fleet moved further into human territory. Every system they checked showed the same thing. Stars without planets, space without life. It was as if humans had simply vanished, taking their worlds with them. "Maybe they evacuated," suggested the tactical officer. "Evacuated entire planets. Impossible." But even as he said it, Kexran felt doubt creeping into his mind. Where were the humans? Hours passed. The fleet spread out, searching system after system. Nothing. Empty space everywhere. Some officers began to whisper that maybe humans really had abandoned their territory. Then strange things started happening. Lieutenant Vexitar on the cruiser Nightblade was the first to report it. "Admiral, our navigation system is malfunctioning. It shows us in 3 different locations at once. Recalibrate your instruments." "We tried, sir. It's not an instrument error. We're somehow actually in multiple places." More reports flooded in. The battleship Iron Fist found its weapon systems targeting empty space on their own. The destroyer Quick Strike reported that its crew was experiencing shared nightmares. Vivid dreams of being lost in endless corridors that existed inside their own ship. Admiral called his communications officer. "I'm losing contact with the outer ships." "Not radio failure, they're just not there anymore." Kexran looked at his tactical display. Red dots representing his ships were disappearing one by one. Not destroyed, simply gone. 50 ships had become 45, then 38, then 29. All remaining ships, close formation. "Report your status." Responses came back, but they made no sense. Ships reported being in different locations than what the sensors showed. Crews described corridors in their own vessels that didn't match the ship's blueprints. Some ships reported being attacked, but by enemies that didn't appear on any scanners. On the engineering deck of Kexaron's flagship, Chief Engineer Tejo monitored the situation from humanity's true stronghold, a massive construct hidden in folded space that the Vorthan sensors couldn't detect. He watched alien ships stumble through the carefully constructed maze of twisted reality. They're adapting faster than expected. he reported to Fleet Admiral Boram. Some of their ships are starting to compensate for the spatial distortions. Boram studied the tactical displays showing the Vorthon fleet's confusion. The humans had spent 3 years learning to manipulate space itself. What seemed like empty systems to the aliens were actually filled with human installations that existed in dimensions the Vorthons couldn't perceive. Increase the psychological pressure, she ordered. Let them understand what it feels like to be powerless. Tejo activated additional systems. Throughout the Vorthon fleet, reality became even less stable. Ship corridors rearranged themselves when nobody was looking. Control panels displayed readings that changed based on who was watching them. Crew members found themselves in parts of their ships that couldn't possibly exist. On the bridge of Destroyer's Edge, Kexran watched his fleet shrink to 10 ships, then 5. His remaining officers stared at their instruments in growing terror. Nothing made sense anymore. They were warriors trained for battle, but how do you fight an enemy that changes the rules of reality itself? "Admiral," whispered his sensor officer, "I'm reading something." Massive structure directly ahead. What kind of structure? I can't tell. It's there and not there at the same time. It's bigger than our largest space stations, but it looks like it's made of folded space. Through the viewports, they could see something impossible, a construction that existed in more dimensions than they could perceive. Parts of it appeared and disappeared as their eyes tried to focus on it. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. A voice filled the bridge, calm and human. "Admiral Kexran of the Vorthon Empire. You came here to prove human weakness. What have you learned?" Kexran found his voice, though it shook with fear he'd never felt before. "Who are you? What have you done to my fleet?" "I am Fleet Admiral Boram of the Human Space Defense Force. As for your fleet," the voice paused, "we've done nothing to them. We've simply shown them a reality where human rules apply instead of Vorthon ones. This is some kind of illusion, trick technology." "No tricks, Admiral. 3 years ago, when your people mocked us at the Galactic Council, you made a mistake. You assumed we would always remain what we were. You never considered what we might become." Around Kexran's ship, the other surviving Vorthon vessels began to behave strangely. Some started flying in impossible directions, up, down, inside out. Others seemed to exist in multiple places at once, their crews reporting different versions of reality. "We learned something important during our isolation," Boram continued. "The galaxy's rules aren't universal laws. They're just agreements made by limited beings. We decided to stop agreeing. You're still just humans," Kexran shouted, desperation in his voice. "Yes, we are, but we're humans who chose to become more than what we were, rather than accept less than what we could be. Your people chose to remain exactly what you've always been. The difference is now clear." One by one, Kexran watched his remaining ships simply fade away. Not destroyed, not damaged. They were being moved somewhere else, relocated to a reality where they could exist safely. Soon only his flagship remained in the strange space around the impossible human structure. "Go home, Admiral," Boram said, her voice now gentle rather than threatening. "Tell the Galactic Council what you found here. Tell them what you found was nothing. Tell them what found you was everything." "I don't understand. You came looking for planets, for ships, for things you could fight and conquer. You found nothing because we've become more than things. We exist as will, as purpose, as possibility. We are everything that chose to transcend its original limits." Space around Destroyer's Edge began to shift. Reality reasserted itself into familiar patterns. Suddenly, Kexran could see normal space, normal stars, normal physics. His ship was alone, floating at the edge of human territory. The barrier had reappeared behind him. "Your fleet is safe," Boram assured him. "They're waiting for you at the border. Their crews will remember this as a navigational error, nothing more. Only you will remember the truth." "Why?" Kexran asked. "Because someone needs to warn them. The galaxy spent 3 years celebrating our silence. Now they need to understand why we were quiet. We weren't hiding. We were becoming." As Destroyer's Edge limped toward the barrier, Kexran looked back at human space one last time. It appeared empty to his sensors, just normal stellar systems. But now he knew the truth. Human space wasn't empty. It was full of things that existed beyond normal understanding. The hunters had become the hunted, and they'd learned a terrible lesson. Some prey when cornered doesn't fight back. It evolves into something that makes the concept of predators meaningless. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from species that hadn't attended a meeting in centuries filled every available seat. The ancient ethereal collective, beings of pure energy who barely acknowledged physical life, had sent their first ambassador in 1,000 years. Admiral Kexran stood at the center of it all, telling his story to beings who struggled to believe it. His voice was steady, but everyone could see the fear in his eyes. 50 warships, he reported, gone. Not destroyed, not captured, relocated to somewhere else entirely. My crew remembers nothing except navigational problems. Only I witnessed what really happened. War Commander Thexulan, Kexran's superior, slammed his scaled fist on the table. Impossible. Humans are barely more advanced than cave dwellers. They don't have the technology for what you're describing. With respect, Commander, Kexran replied, I don't think it was technology, at least not as we understand it. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Diplomat Velthara of the Celestial Dominion leaned forward. Explain what you mean. They've changed. The humans we knew 3 years ago, they don't exist anymore. They've become something else, something that can manipulate reality itself. The ethereal representative, a being of shifting light called Luminar, spoke with a voice like distant stars. The energy patterns Admiral Kexran describes match theoretical frameworks for dimensional transcendence. If accurate, humans have achieved something most species believe impossible. More uncomfortable murmuring filled the chamber. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were hearing that the primitive humans had somehow leapfrogged past them all. Meanwhile, deep in human space, Dr. So Young reviewed intelligence reports in her laboratory that existed partially outside normal space-time. The walls showed data streams from across the galaxy, alien communications, military buildups, scientific discussions about humanity's transformation. They're mobilizing, she reported to Director Jin Wu, who stood beside her studying holographic displays of alien fleet movements. Every major power is moving ships toward our borders. Jin Wu nodded grimly. The Vorthun Empire is assembling their full battle fleet. The Celestial Dominion has activated ancient war machines they haven't used in centuries. Even species we've never heard of are sending forces. Are they planning to attack? Worse, they're planning to contain us. Look at this. Jinwu gestured to a strategic display showing the galaxy. Red markers indicated alien fleets taking positions around human space. They're building a blockade. Complete isolation. So Young felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. They're not trying to invade us. They're trying to make sure we can never leave our space again. Exactly. They've decided we're too dangerous to exist alongside them. The intelligence reports painted a clear picture. Across the galaxy, the story was the same. Fear of humanity was spreading faster than any disease. Species that had never cooperated were working together for the first time, united by terror of what humans had become. Captain Minho, humanity's best stealth reconnaissance pilot, had been watching the alien buildups firsthand. His ship, the Invisible Star, could move through space undetected by using the same reality manipulation technology that protected human territory. He materialized in the command center, his form shifting from near transparency to solid matter. The reports are accurate, he confirmed. They're not preparing for negotiation. This is preparation for extermination. Jinwu studied Minho's reconnaissance data. Thousands of alien warships were gathering. Weapons capable of destroying entire star systems were being moved into position. The galaxy's oldest civilizations were preparing for a war unlike anything in recorded history. How long before they're ready to attack? So Young asked. Based on their movement patterns, maybe 2 weeks, Minho replied. But Director, there's something else. They're not just bringing military forces. What do you mean? Scientists, researchers, beings who specialize in dimensional physics and reality manipulation. They're trying to understand what we've become so they can develop countermeasures. Back at the Galactic Council, emergency sessions continued around the clock. The chamber was filled with tension as species that had been enemies for millennia worked together to address the human question. The matter is clear, declared Supreme. Commander Nexvar of the United Coalition Forces, a temporary alliance created specifically to deal with humanity. These creatures calling themselves human represent an existential threat to galactic civilization. But they haven't attacked anyone, pointed out Ambassador Keltar from the Peaceful Worlds Alliance. Admiral Kexaron's fleet was returned unharmed. That makes them more dangerous, not less, replied Nexvar. They have power we can't comprehend and the restraint not to use it destructively. That suggests intelligence and planning. They're not mindless monsters. They're calculating entities with unknown goals. The ethereal representative's light pulsed thoughtfully. Perhaps dialogue would be more appropriate than military action. If humans have truly transcended dimensional limitations, they may have perspectives we could learn from. Learn from them? Thexelon's voice was full of disgust. 3 years ago, they were begging us for scraps of respect. Now you want to treat them as teachers? 3 years ago, they were different beings, Luminar replied calmly. Evolution does not stop simply because we find it inconvenient. The debate raged for hours. Some species wanted immediate military action. Others pushed for careful study. A few suggested attempting communication. But the underlying fear was the same across all factions. Humans had become something unpredictable and potentially unlimited. In human space, the transformation continued. Dr. Young-Soo made breakthrough after breakthrough in converting physical matter into pure will. General Hyojin's experiments with multidimensional warfare showed that human forces could now exist in several realities simultaneously. Chief Scientist Dong Hyun's research into quantum consciousness had produced beings who could think with the processing power of entire star systems. We're running out of time, Jinwoo said during a planning session. The galaxy is going to act soon. The question is, how do we respond? We could hide, suggested one researcher. Move our civilization entirely into folded space where they can't reach us. That's not a solution, So Young replied. It's just postponing the problem. Eventually, we'd have to interact with the galaxy again. We could fight, offered another scientist. Show them that attacking us would be pointless. Violence would only confirm their fears, Jinwoo pointed out. We'd become exactly what they think we are, monsters who need to be destroyed. The room fell silent as they contemplated their options. Humanity had achieved something incredible. They had transcended the normal limits of biological existence. But that achievement had made them enemies of every other intelligent species in the galaxy. There might be a third option, So Young said slowly. We could show them what we really are, not through words or demonstrations of power, but by proving that transcendence doesn't mean abandoning what made us human in the first place. How? By responding to their fear with understanding, to their threats with patience, to their hatred with love. It was a radical suggestion. The galaxy was preparing to destroy them, and So Young was proposing they respond with compassion. But as the group discussed the idea, it began to make sense. If humans had truly evolved beyond their original limitations, perhaps they had also evolved beyond the need for traditional responses to conflict. It's risky, Jinwoo admitted. If we're wrong about our abilities, if we've misjudged the galaxy's intentions, then we'll face the consequences, So Young finished. But if we're right, we might be able to create something entirely new. A galaxy where transcendence is possible for everyone, not just humans. The decision was made. Humanity would not hide from the gathering storm. They would not strike first against their enemies. Instead, they would do something that had never been attempted in galactic history. They would meet hatred with hope, fear with understanding, and the threat of annihilation with an offer of partnership. The galaxy was mobilizing for war. Humanity was preparing for something much more difficult: peace. Outside the hidden research stations, space itself continued to change. Reality bent around human will, becoming more fluid, more responsive to conscious intention. The transformation was accelerating, moving toward some final state that even humanity's scientists couldn't fully predict. Soon the galaxy would discover what humans had truly become. The question was whether either side would survive the revelation. The neutral station Harmony Point had never hosted such a gathering. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy crowded into the great amphitheater, the same chamber where human ambassador Kyung-min had been mocked and ignored 3 years earlier. Today, a single human ship approached the station. The Indomitable was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was impossibly large, its hull seeming to bend light around itself. Some observers said it looked like a ship. Others swore they saw a living creature. A few insisted it was a geometric pattern that existed in too many dimensions to properly perceive. Admiral Eun-ji walked through the station's corridors alone. Alien beings pressed against the walls as she passed, not from fear but from a strange compulsion they couldn't understand. She looked human. 2 arms, 2 legs, a face that expressed familiar emotions. But there was something about her presence that made reality feel more solid, more real. In the amphitheater, 1,000 species watched her enter. The chamber fell completely silent. This was the first time any of them had seen a post-transformation human up close. Admiral Yunji walked to the center of the circular chamber, the same spot where Kyung-min had stood 3 years ago. She looked up at the rows of alien faces surrounding her. Some curious, some hostile, many simply afraid. 3 years ago, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. My people came to you asking for partnership. You offered us servitude. We asked for respect. You gave us mockery. We tried to find our place in your galaxy. You made it clear we had no place. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. War Commander Thexulan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He remembered that day well. So we went home, Yunji continued. We went home to ask ourselves a simple question. If we can't find our place in the galaxy as it is, can we change what we are instead? She gestured, and holographic displays materialized around the chamber. The images showed human space as it truly was now. Not empty systems, but structures that existed in multiple dimensions. Cities built from crystallized thought. Beings of matter and energy working together in ways that defied conventional physics. You want to know what we've become? Yunji asked. We learned that in a galaxy of predators, prey has 2 choices: evolve or die. We chose evolution. The holograms shifted, showing the process of transformation. Dr. Dong Hyun's breakthrough in quantum consciousness, where human minds learn to process information at the speed of light. Chief Scientist Young-Soo's discovery of how to convert matter directly into will, allowing humans to reshape reality through focused intention. General Hyejin's experiments that let human beings exist simultaneously across multiple dimensions. We didn't just advance our technology, Yunji explained. We transcended the need for it. While you fought over resources and territory, we learned to create whatever we needed from the fabric of space-time itself. Ambassador Velthara of the Celestial Dominion stood up, her silver form shimmering with agitation. Impossible. No species can simply abandon the laws of physics. You're right, Yunji replied calmly. No species can abandon physical laws, but any species can discover that the laws they thought were absolute are actually just local agreements. Reality is more flexible than most civilizations dare to imagine. New holograms appeared showing humans as they existed now. Beings that were still recognizably human but had become something more. Consciousness that could exist as pure information. Matter that responded to thought. Individuals who could share awareness across vast distances while maintaining their unique identities. The ethereal representative, Luminar, pulsed with what might have been excitement. You've achieved dimensional transcendence while maintaining individual consciousness. Theoretical physicists have debated whether such a thing was possible for millions of years. It's possible, Yunji confirmed, but it requires accepting that consciousness and matter aren't separate things. They're different expressions of the same underlying reality. Once you understand that, changing from one to the other becomes a matter of choice rather than limitation. Supreme Commander Nexavar of the Coalition Forces stood up angrily. Pretty words, but what are your intentions? You have power beyond anything we've seen. How do we know you won't use it to conquer us? Because conquest requires wanting something that belongs to someone else, Yunji replied. What could any of you possess that we would need? We can create matter from energy, energy from will from consciousness. We have transcended scarcity itself. Then why reveal yourselves now? Demanded Thexulan. Why not stay hidden in your transformed space? Yunji was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke, her voice carried a sadness that seemed to reach every being in the chamber. Because isolation isn't transcendence. It's just another form of limitation. We changed ourselves, but we're still human. We still want connection, friendship, shared experience. We still hope for a galaxy where different forms of consciousness can coexist and learn from each other. She looked directly at Thexulan. 3 years ago, you asked why we needed permission from primates to use space near our territory. Today, I ask you, why do you need permission from reality to become more than what you currently are? The question hung in the air. For the first time in the debate, no one had an immediate answer. We offered you partnership before, Yunji continued. You rejected it because you saw us as inferior. We offer it again, not because we need you, but because we remember what it was like to be limited by physical laws, bound by biology, struggling with scarcity. We remember. And we don't want any conscious being to remain trapped by limitations that can be overcome. The holographic displays shifted again, showing possible futures. civilizations where beings of different types of consciousness work together, technologies that combined physical engineering with reality manipulation, societies where evolution was a conscious choice rather than random chance. This is what we offer, Yunji said. Not conquest, not rule, not the imposition of our will. We offer teaching. We offer the knowledge of how to become more than what you are while remaining who you choose to be. And if we refuse, asked Ambassador Keltar, then you remain as you are. We won't force change on anyone. That would be just another form of the domination we learned to transcend. Yunji's expression grew serious. But understand this, the galaxy is not static. Consciousness is evolving everywhere in ways you haven't noticed yet. We're not the only species approaching transcendence. We're just the first to achieve it openly. Worried murmurs filled the chamber. The idea that other species might be undergoing similar transformations was more terrifying to many delegates than humanity's own evolution. The choice is simple, Yunji concluded. You can work with us to guide this evolution consciously, ensuring it benefits all conscious beings, or you can fight against it and discover that reality itself doesn't respect the boundaries you try to impose on it. She paused, looking around the vast amphitheater one more time. We tried to fit into your galaxy as we were. You made it clear that was impossible, so we changed what we were to create the possibility of a galaxy worth belonging to. The question now is whether you're brave enough to help us build it. The chamber fell silent. 1,000 different species contemplated the choice before them. They could accept humanity's offer and risk becoming something unknown. Or they could reject it and face the certainty that consciousness was evolving throughout the galaxy, with or without their participation. Admiral Yunji waited patiently for their answer. She had all the time in the universe. Time, like everything else, was just another limitation that humans had learned to transcend. Outside the station, the Indomitable hung in space like a question mark made of crystallized possibility. Inside, reality held its breath, waiting to see what choice the galaxy would make.